If you're an American citizen, then you've probably heard of the Supreme Court. They've done many things since the Constitution first established them, the executive and legislative branches, back in 1787. Things like protecting the rights of citizens during a time of war in the 1860s, desegregating schools in the South in the 1950s, and legalizing same-sex marriage back in 2015. But what does this branch of the federal government actually do? What gives them this incredibly powerful prerogative to sometimes completely change the way our country functions? I'm Mr. Kritzberger, and welcome to my classroom. Today, we will be talking about the Supreme Court decision known as Marbury versus Madison. But before we can do that, we need to set the stage. The year is 1800. There are now 16 states in the Union. Electricity has not yet been invented, and the average life expectancy for an American is around 37 years old. Our second president, John Adams, has just lost re-election to his opponent and vice president, Thomas Jefferson. This was an extremely contentious and vicious election. After President Washington finished his 2 terms as president, political parties soon emerged for the first time in the United States. One, the Federalist Party, which President Adams belonged to, and the other, the Republican Party, which Thomas Jefferson belonged to. For the first time in U.S. history, the presidency is about to transfer from one party to another. In the closing days of his presidency, John Adams and his administration, which, remember, are the Federalists, created several new government offices and appointed Federalist Party members to fill them. One of these last-minute or midnight appointments was that of William Marbury. Marbury was appointed as justice for the District of Columbia. President Adams had signed the papers necessary to appoint him to his new position, but Adams's Secretary of State, John Marshall, accidentally forgot to deliver the papers necessary to make the appointment official. Before Adams could fix the mistake, Thomas Jefferson had already taken office as our third president. So, Thomas Jefferson has just taken office and was furious with the Federalists' attempt to keep control of government even after being voted out of office. So, President Jefferson ordered his Secretary of State, James Madison, not to deliver the paperwork which would appoint William Marbury to the District of Columbia. William Marbury was infuriated that the new president had stopped his appointment, even though, in his eyes, he had rightfully been given the job before the new president had taken office. Marbury then sued Secretary of State James Madison, attempting to force him to deliver the necessary paperwork. The case made it all the way to the Supreme Court, which we now call Marbury versus Madison. According to Article 3 of the Constitution, which, remember, is the article which establishes the Supreme Court, says that the Supreme Court is the highest court in the United States. When Marbury versus Madison made it to the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice was John Marshall. Yes, the same John Marshall who was President Adams's Secretary of State, the one who had helped him keep the Federalists in power after they had lost re-election, and the same one who forgot to deliver Marbury's paperwork. Chief Justice Marshall was a strong believer in the power of judicial review. What this basically boils down to is the ability of the court to decide whether or not something is constitutional. Nowhere in the Constitution does it state that the Supreme Court can do this, but Justice Marshall believed the Supreme Court inherently had the right to do so. Chief Justice Marshall reviewed the case based on 3 different questions. 1. Did Marbury have a right to the office which he had been appointed? 2. If so, was he entitled to some action under U.S. law? And 3, again, if so, was that action something that would come from the Supreme Court or some other part of government? So let's break it down. The first question, did Marbury have a right to the office? Well, the Supreme Court decided that yes, he did. Once the paperwork had been signed and the official U.S. seal was placed on it, the Supreme Court ruled that Marbury had earned his appointment, regardless if the paperwork had been delivered. Now, the second question, was he now entitled to some action under U.S. law? Well, yes. He had earned the commission, according to the court, and had been denied it. So, some resolution had to be made. So finally, was it the Supreme Court's job to resolve it, or another part of government? The answer that the Supreme Court came up with was yes. In his decision, Justice Marshall defended the right of the Supreme Court to declare a law unconstitutional. The Judiciary Act of 1789, which was the law that was preventing Marbury from taking his position, was ruled unconstitutional. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is this case, of all cases, so important? Well, here's why. Up until 1803, when the case was finally ruled on, the Supreme Court had never declared a law unconstitutional. The Supreme Court had only ruled on matters which fell in the laws which Congress had passed. They had never declared that Congress had written a law that violated the Constitution. Going on from this point in history, the Supreme Court began to hear cases almost exclusively on whether or not laws or practices in the United States were constitutional or not. Justice John Marshall established a precedent that the Supreme Court not only has the authority to interpret laws, but also to declare that laws can no longer be enforced because they are unconstitutional. So the next time that you wonder why this branch of government has so much power, but is yet so mysterious, you might want to crack open a copy of the U.S. Constitution and brush up a little bit. You never know when your life will change because someone forgot to deliver their paperwork.